Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't yet realize how dangerous they are. Pause and let that sink in. Because if you're watching this, there's a high chance you are that person, the one who's been walking through life like a sleeping giant, unaware that every step you take shakes the spiritual ground beneath you. They feel it. They've always felt it. That's why they've tried to dim you, distract you, discard you, before you even knew who you were. And here's a fact they don't want you to know. According to bioenergetic science, the human heart emits an electromagnetic field that can be measured up to 3 feet outside your body. And if you're spiritually awakened, that energy can reach miles. That's not metaphysical poetry. That's science catching up with your truth. So no, you're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're not imagining the fear in their eyes when you walk in. That's their nervous system screaming, there's something about this one. You haven't even scratched the surface of what you're capable of, but they've already built emergency exits in case you figure it out. And let's be honest, it's almost funny, isn't it? You've spent years wondering what's wrong with you. Meanwhile, they're praying you never realize what's right. So buckle up, because once you see what's really going on, you'll stop doubting yourself and start terrifying them on purpose. Let's dive in. Number 1, your energy is a lie detector and they can't hide around you. You walk into a room and everything shifts, not because you're loud, flashy, or trying to impress anyone, but because your energy speaks first. You might not realize it, but your presence exposes things people are desperately trying to hide. The guilt they've buried, the envy they try to dress up as friendliness, the lies they've told themselves and others. Your spirit pulls it all to the surface like a magnet. You don't even have to say a word. You being there is enough to make them squirm. It's not that you're confrontational. It's that your authenticity strips away their masks. And that scares them. Because in a world where most people are wearing personas just to survive, someone who operates in truth becomes a threat. Your frequency acts like a spiritual lie detector. You walk in peace, but your peace is disruptive. You carry light, but that light makes it impossible for others to hide in the shadows. Some people avoid you, not because you did anything wrong, but because standing next to you makes them feel exposed, spiritually, emotionally, even mentally. You may have noticed how people either deeply respect you or seem uncomfortable around you without reason. It's not in your head. What you carry confronts what they've suppressed. You don't just make them feel something, you awaken something. And awakening is uncomfortable for those who've built their lives on denial. The most twisted part? Some will blame you for how they feel. They'll act like you're the problem, when really your presence just revealed one they've been ignoring. That's why you've been misjudged, misunderstood, even mistreated by people who never took time to know you. It was never about who you are. It was always about what you triggered. The truth is they feel the power in you before you even fully do. And that power, it disturbs the spiritual systems they use to survive. It exposes fake love, false loyalty, shallow motives. That's why they're uncomfortable around you, not because you're harsh, but because you're real. And in a world addicted to illusion, nothing is scarier than someone who carries the truth without even trying. Number 2, you're the mirror that shatters their illusions. When you walk into a room, you don't just occupy space. You hold up a mirror that shatters every comfortable story people told themselves. They've built little worlds of denial where they pretend their mistakes, compromises, and moral shortcuts don't exist. You aren't doing them any favors by pretending to fit in. Your clarity makes their half-truths look ridiculous. Your questions feel like spotlights trained on the cracks in their foundations, and instead of scrambling to patch things up, they'd rather tear you down. They thought they had mastered the art of self-deception, crafting excuses, rationalizations, and smooth explanations to keep their guilt buried. But you don't play along with rehearsed defenses. You see the hesitation in their eyes when they talk about how things happened, the way their voices rise when they spin a narrative, and the subtle posture shifts when you call out what everyone else tiptoes around. They feel exposed, and that exposure triggers panic. Instead of owning their truth, they lash out at the one who makes it impossible to hide. You're not a crusader or a critic. You're simply unwilling to pretend. Your honesty doesn't wear a cape or shout slogans. It just sits there, unfiltered and unwavering. When they claim they're fine, you sense they're not. When they celebrate a victory, you notice the cost behind it. And when they boast about loyalty, you smell the betrayal they've covered up. Every time you refuse to applaud mediocrity or look away from wrongdoing, you're pulling shards of glass out of their rose-colored glasses. The discomfort they feel isn't personal. It's the shock of seeing themselves without the convenient filters they've relied on for years. They can't blame you for that jolt, only their own refusal to face what's true. And because admitting their illusions would mean dismantling entire worlds they built around those lies, they choose to aim their anger at you. They'd rather call you harsh or insensitive than admit, even to themselves, that you're right. What terrifies them most isn't your power or your presence. It's the idea that someone could be that real and survive. You don't just force them to wake up, you show them that there's life beyond the stories they cling to, and once they glimpse that reality, there's no going back to comfortable illusions. That's why your mirror cracks them to the core, and why they fear your reflection more than anything else. Number 3, you're spiritually sovereign, and that's a threat to control. You are a spiritual sovereign, and that threatens people who depend on control to feel important. You're not easily swayed by popularity, peer pressure, or fake flattery. You don't move just because others expect you to. You listen inward. You move when you're led by something deeper, something real. And that's exactly what makes you so dangerous to people who build their lives on manipulation. Most people are programmed to need validation. They crave permission. They don't know who they are unless someone tells them who to be. But you broke out of that cycle. You stopped asking for approval a long time ago. You started living from your own core instead of other people's opinions. That's rare. And it scares those who still find their power in controlling others. You can't be bribed with attention, pressured by fear, or swayed by groupthink. And that's why they don't know what to do with you. You're not a follower. You're not desperate to be liked. You'll walk away from anything that feels wrong, even if it leaves you standing alone. That kind of power doesn't come from ego. It comes from alignment. And most people don't even know what that feels like. When someone realizes they can't manipulate you, they start trying to silence you. They try to paint you as rebellious, cold, or difficult. But what they're really saying is, I can't control you, and that makes me uncomfortable. They're used to people who fold under pressure, shrink for approval, or fake happiness to be accepted. You broke that mold, and now you're a living contradiction to the systems they rely on. What's really wild is that your strength doesn't even come from trying to be strong. You're just grounded in truth. You're not chasing a spotlight. You're walking in purpose. You're not chasing titles. You're living in alignment. That confuses people who've traded their souls for a seat at the table. You became powerful by refusing to play their game. They can't label you, box you in, or predict your next move. And when people can't control you, they fear you. Not because you're dangerous, but because your freedom reminds them how trapped they are. You being unapologetically yourself is the exact thing their system was never designed to handle. And now they realize they can't stop you. Number 4. You came into this world as a frequency upgrade. You didn't just arrive into this world by chance. You were planted, positioned, and encoded. There's a reason you've never fully blended in, never fully resonated with surface-level conversations or shallow systems. From a young age, things felt off. Not because something was wrong with you, but because something was waking up through you. You weren't designed to adapt to dysfunction. You were sent to expose it, challenge it, and ultimately break it. You carry a frequency that doesn't match the status quo. And that frequency isn't just high, it's disruptive. It shakes up fake harmony, stirs up dormant truth, and pushes suppressed pain to the surface. That's why you trigger people without trying. Your presence alone forces a reaction. Some are drawn to you instantly, others recoil, but both feel something they can't explain because you weren't meant to make sense to the systems built on illusion. You were meant to evolve them. You weren't born into your family by accident. You were born into a line that needed someone brave enough to interrupt the loop, someone with the spiritual technology to rewrite patterns passed down like hand-me-downs. The pain you've carried, the emotional weight you've felt, even the rejection you've endured, it wasn't punishment. It was your initiation into becoming the very solution that bloodline needed but never had. You're not here to repeat. You're here to reset. And that makes people deeply uncomfortable. You question things others blindly accept. You challenge beliefs that entire communities have built their identity around. And you do it without raising your voice because your very existence is a challenge to anything inauthentic. That's not intimidation, it's spiritual evolution in real time. People sense there's something different about you, but they can't put their finger on it. It's not charisma, it's not charm. It's that you vibrate at a different level, and that level doesn't just attract, it activates. People have spiritual encounters just from being in your space. Old patterns fall off, hidden truths surface, new awareness downloads, all because your energy is carrying something they've never experienced before. You didn't come to fit in, you came to break cycles, upgrade atmospheres, and initiate change. You're not ahead of your time, you are the time. And the systems shaking around you, that's the world adjusting to your arrival. And number 5, your isolation wasn't rejection, it was containment. You thought you were being rejected, you thought you were being excluded, forgotten, passed over. But the truth is far more powerful than your pain ever let you see. You weren't being abandoned, you were being contained. God was keeping you sealed like oil in a jar because your presence carried too much purity to be exposed prematurely. If you had been accepted by the wrong people, influenced by the wrong energies, or invited into the wrong spaces too soon, your purpose would have been diluted beyond recognition. The loneliness wasn't a curse, it was a cocoon. While others were out chasing noise and attention, you were being trained in silence. While others were performing for validation, you were being refined by fire. You weren't hidden because you weren't valuable. You were hidden because you were too valuable to be handled carelessly. Some people were allowed to be popular quickly because they had nothing weighty to protect. But you carried power that needed guarding. Your ideas, your voice, your energy, all of it was sacred. If the wrong hands got access too soon, they would have tried to twist it, mock it, use it, or worse, shape it into something small enough to make them comfortable. God didn't just hide you from them, He hid them from you. And now something is shifting. Your emergence is unsettling not only people, but spiritual structures. The moment you started stepping out, even in small ways, things started shaking, people changed, energies got weird, hidden agendas came to light. That's not paranoia, that's confirmation. They don't fear you because you're loud, they fear you because you're real. You carry something that hasn't been seen before, and it's forcing people and spirits alike to reevaluate their territory. You didn't waste years in isolation. You were being encrypted. You were learning how to hear God clearly, how to survive betrayal without turning bitter, how to stand alone without collapsing, how to carry power without becoming prideful. You are being built from the inside out. And now that the seal is breaking, they're not just sensing your presence, they're sensing what's coming through you. They're not afraid of your name, they're afraid of your activation. Because once you step into full awareness, every system that tried to contain you will start to fall apart. And number 6, your mind is a weapon they can't disarm. Your mind doesn't just work, it cuts. It slices through manipulation, exposes hidden agendas, and disarms confusion before it can even reach you. You were never the type to accept things at face value. You've always needed to know why, to pull back the layers, to see what's really going on underneath. And that's not a flaw. That's your built-in defense system. That's your gift. You were designed to think on frequencies most people can't even pick up. You're not just smart. You're spiritually wired to detect truth in the middle of chaos. You pick up on contradictions. You see patterns that no one else is talking about. What looks like paranoia to others is just your intuition working overtime. You don't just listen to what people say. You feel the motives behind their words. And that makes you impossible to deceive for long. The lies don't stick to you. The manipulation doesn't penetrate. Your mind works like a firewall, blocking what isn't aligned with truth before it ever reaches your spirit. And let's be real, this makes people uncomfortable, especially those who rely on confusion to maintain power, those who profit from keeping people mentally lazy, emotionally reactive, and spiritually blind. You are a threat to that system, not because you're aggressive, but because you see, you notice what's not being said. You catch contradictions most people brush off. You ask questions that unravel the whole show. They can't stand that you don't need to be told what to think, that you challenge things they've always just accepted, that you're not hypnotized by titles, status, or charisma. You're not drawn to surface. You dig, and what you find, it changes things. This is why they try to make you question yourself, why they call you too deep, too intense, or too analytical. It's all a tactic to distract you from the fact that you're dangerous to deception. Your ability to think independently, spiritually, and critically is what makes you a rare kind of powerful. Not loud, not forceful, but undeniably clear. They can't shut your mind down. They can't get around your discernment. And most of all, they can't predict your next move, because you're thinking 5 steps ahead while they're still playing games you've already outgrown. Number 7, they attack you because submission was expected, not power. They never expected you to become powerful. In fact, the environment you came from was designed to make you forget you had any power at all. You were raised, surrounded, or trained by people who only supported you as long as you stayed small. The moment you started thinking for yourself, asserting your worth, drawing boundaries, or stepping into your gifts, that's when the attacks began. Not because you changed into something bad, but because you stopped being manageable. They expected submission from you, quiet compliance, emotional softness that they could guilt trip or manipulate. They expected you to tolerate disrespect in the name of peace, to ignore injustice in the name of humility, to keep giving while being drained dry. You were supposed to shrink every time they needed to feel big. That was the unspoken contract. Stay agreeable, and maybe you'll be accepted. But you broke that contract the moment you chose authenticity over approval, and once you did, they panicked. Because your rise doesn't just threaten their ego, it threatens the whole system that was built around you being predictable, quiet, and easy to control, whether it was family, friends, church, relationships, or society as a whole. They positioned you as the one who would never challenge the structure. But you grew, you healed. You saw through the manipulation, and when you started standing in your truth, you exposed how fake their balance really was. They'll tell others you changed. They'll say you became arrogant or rebellious. But what they're really saying is this: you stopped making yourself small to keep them comfortable. You stopped ignoring your intuition just to avoid conflict. You stopped carrying emotional weight that wasn't yours to begin with. Their problem isn't that you've grown. Their problem is that you outgrew their control. You're no longer operating under the programming that says your value is based on how well you play nice. You're now standing in the truth that your presence itself has value, even if it disrupts the room. You became the storm they never planned for, not loud, not violent, but unstoppable. And the system they built around your silence can't handle your voice. They fear it not because it's destructive, but because it's free. And freedom, to people who live off control, is the biggest threat of all. Number 8, your pain transmuted into authority. Most people go through pain and come out bitter, guarded, or completely broken, but not you. What was meant to destroy you did something completely different. It activated you. Your pain didn't just change you emotionally, it rewired you spiritually. It pushed you into depths that most people spend their whole lives avoiding, and because of that, you didn't come out weaker. You came out with authority. You didn't just get through it. You absorbed every lesson. You listened while you were suffering. You paid attention to the hidden details. You analyzed the patterns. You asked the deeper questions. Why did this happen? Who benefited from my silence? What does this say about the systems I was born into? You didn't suppress what happened to you. You transmuted it. You turned trauma into discernment. You turned betrayal into spiritual radar. You turned heartbreak into clarity. Now you walk into rooms and instantly sense what others miss. You can feel when a compliment has poison behind it. You can pick up on the tension others are pretending not to notice. You can feel when someone is wearing a mask, and you know when a smile is a warning sign. That's not paranoia. That's wisdom. You didn't just gain knowledge, you earned spiritual credentials. Pain gave you access to insight that can't be taught in any classroom or bought with any title. And this is why you carry a certain weight in your presence. Even if you're quiet, people feel it. You don't speak unless it matters. You don't entertain nonsense. You don't chase validation. Because you've already lived through situations where none of that saved you. You've already been in rooms where the ones smiling were the ones plotting. You've seen darkness behind beautiful faces. You've been used, underestimated, betrayed, abandoned, and yet here you are, clearer, sharper, heavier with truth. This is what gives you authority, not just your voice, but your lived truth. You're not guessing, That's why your words carry power. That's why your silence feels unsettling to people. That's why people either respect you deeply or try to discredit you. They sense that you've been somewhere deep and came back with keys. You didn't just survive, you transformed. And now your presence carries a wisdom that can't be explained, only felt. Number 9, you don't just influence people, you rewire their spirit. You don't just leave an impression, you leave an imprint. When people encounter you, something shifts. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because your presence forces them to feel again, to think deeper, to reflect on things they've been avoiding for years. You don't just speak words, you carry weight. A weight that disturbs the spiritual numbness most people have gotten comfortable with. You don't deal in surface-level advice or feel-good talk. What you say cuts through people's illusions. Your words carry frequency. They shake loose buried memories, unprocessed emotions, and forgotten dreams. Some people walk away from a conversation with you and feel stirred up for days. They can't sleep. They start questioning their life, their choices, their values. That's not because you said something harsh, it's because you said something true. And truth doesn't always feel good, but it always activates something. You have a way of seeing the real version of people, not the polished version they perform for the world, but the part of them that's been buried under survival, trauma, compromise, or ego. When they talk to you, they feel seen, and it scares them. You reflect the version of themselves they abandoned, the brave one, the creative one, the one that didn't shrink to fit in. That version comes alive again in your presence, and it makes people realize how far they've drifted. And here's the part no one tells you. Most people aren't ready to be reminded of who they were before they sold out. They're not ready to feel the weight of their own truth. That's why some people pull away from you, why they suddenly go silent, why they act like you're too intense or too much. It's not you. It's what your presence awakens in them. You don't motivate people in the usual sense. You realign them. You help them remember their original design. You shake off the layers of conditioning. You break through the noise of the world. You help them hear their own soul again. And that kind of influence is rare and a little terrifying for those who've spent years hiding from themselves. You're not just influential. You're catalytic. You don't change people. You reveal who they truly are. And not everyone's ready for that level of truth. Number 10. Your confidence isn't arrogance, it's ancestral memory. Your confidence confuses people because it doesn't follow the usual rules. You're not loud, boastful, or trying to prove anything, but there's a steady weight to the way you carry yourself. A quiet authority, a deep knowing, and people mistake it for arrogance because they're used to confidence that's fragile and performative. Yours isn't built on titles, followers, applause, or accomplishments. It's built on something ancient, memory. You're not figuring yourself out the way others are. You're remembering. You didn't stumble into your sense of purpose. It's been calling you for years from deep inside. You've always had a sense that you were meant for more, that you came here with an assignment. It's not ego, it's encoded. You've carried this knowing since before you had language for it. It's why certain things have never made sense to you, why certain behaviors never sat right with you, and why shallow goals never satisfied you. You've walked with the divine before. Your spirit has known war, has known sacred silence, has known elevation. So when you speak with certainty, it's not coming from arrogance, it's coming from spiritual recall. You don't need external permission because you already carry internal confirmation. That makes people uncomfortable, especially those who have spent their entire lives building their identity on approval from others. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't flinch when they're doubted, who doesn't crumble when they're excluded, and who doesn't need validation to feel valuable. They try to humble you, thinking they're doing you a favor, but what they're really doing is revealing their own insecurity. Your presence disrupts their illusion that power has to be earned through suffering, performance, or status. You carry power simply because you are. This kind of confidence can't be taught in books. It can't be copied from a trend. It can't be faked through affirmations. It's spiritual DNA. It's generational wisdom. It's the voice of every ancestor who survived, healed, prayed, and fought, echoing through you. You don't speak for attention. You speak from a lineage. You're not trying to convince anyone of your worth. You're living proof of it. And that unnerves people, because no matter how hard they try, they can't recreate what's in your bones. Number 11, You carry spiritual immunity against their manipulation. You're not easy to fool, and that's what scares them most. The usual tactics they use to manipulate others fall flat when they try them on you. Guilt doesn't bend you. Emotional games don't trap you. The sweet talking, the backhanded compliments, the fake concern, they bounce off you like rubber bullets. You're not cold or distant, you're just immune, spiritually immune. And for people who rely on control to maintain power, that immunity makes you dangerous. They scramble because nothing they do seems to shake you. They can't twist your emotions the way they twist others. They can't bait you into arguments. They can't confuse you with half-truths or win you over with charm. That's not because you're better. It's because you've been there. You've seen behind the curtain. You've survived the gaslighting, the guilt trips, the emotional blackmail. And instead of making you weaker, it gave you clarity, discernment, strength. Now you recognize manipulation from the first sentence. You can feel when someone is being dishonest, even if their words sound perfect. You can pick up on energy shifts, you notice inconsistencies, and once you spot it, you disengage, not because you're scared, but because you know what's happening. That awareness alone makes you a threat to any environment built on emotional control. They were counting on you to be naive, to doubt yourself, to fall back into old patterns. But now they're dealing with someone who sees through the game, someone who doesn't need to explain their boundaries, justify their intuition, or beg to be understood. You don't entertain manipulation because you've grown past the level where it works. That's why they get frustrated. That's why they talk about you like you're the problem. Because they can't get under your skin, and they don't know how to handle that kind of self-possession. You're the glitch in their program. A system built on fear, shame, and confusion can't process someone who has healed beyond it. You're a reminder that their tools only work on the unaware. You carry a frequency that can't be coded by control, and that means their influence over you is officially broken. And the ones who built their identity around being able to manipulate others, they feel that loss of control, and it terrifies them. Number 12. You can sense their intentions before they speak. You don't wait for people to tell you who they are, you already know. Before they even finish a sentence, you've already picked up on what they're not saying. You read energy, not just words. You pay attention to the slight pause before a compliment, the shift in their eyes, the tightness in their smile. You hear the message behind the tone. You sense the threat behind the kindness. And that's not imagination, it's spiritual accuracy, built through experience, pain, and divine refinement. You've learned to see past surface gestures because you've been burned by them before. You know what it's like to trust the wrong people, to give the benefit of the doubt, to ignore your gut, and pay the price. That pain didn't just harden you, it sharpened you, it gave you a spiritual filter. So now when someone approaches you with a fake smile and sweet words, something in you already knows the script. You can feel when someone's energy doesn't match their message. You can tell when their motive is control, not connection. They hate that about you. They hate that you don't fall for the mask, that you can sit quietly in a room and still make people feel exposed. They hate that you're 2 steps ahead of the lie they haven't even spoken yet. And it's not because you're judging them, it's because you can see them. And that's terrifying for someone who's used to performing their way through life. This is why people either deeply respect you or get uncomfortable around you. It's hard to manipulate someone who sees you clearly. And it's impossible to hide when someone like you walks in. That's why some people keep their distance, not because you're rude or unapproachable, but because your presence is convicting. It reminds them of the masks they wear, the games they play, the secrets they carry. You didn't choose to be this perceptive. Life made you this way. God made you this way. You needed this level of discernment to survive what you've been through. And now it's no longer just survival. It's your gift. You see what others pretend not to, and the more aligned you become, the sharper that gift gets. You're not paranoid, you're precise. And those who try to deceive you, they feel that accuracy, and it shakes them. Number 13, your awakening is a threat to their comfort zones. You didn't hurt anyone, you didn't attack anyone, you didn't betray anyone. All you did was wake up, and suddenly you became a threat. The moment you stopped playing along with dysfunctional roles, outdated rules, and limiting beliefs, people started to turn on you. Not because you did something wrong, but because you exposed something they were trying to keep hidden. Your growth made them uncomfortable. Your clarity made their confusion obvious. Your healing made their wounds harder to ignore. You broke free from the mental cages that others are still living in. You stopped thinking like a follower. You stopped agreeing just to keep the peace. You started asking questions no one wanted to answer. You began to make choices that reflected your truth instead of their expectations. And for people who are still asleep, still stuck, still dependent on approval, that's terrifying. You didn't just change, you shattered the illusion that staying small is the only way to be safe. Your awakening was a mirror. It showed them what they could be if they were brave enough to let go. It showed them how much of their life is based on fear, not freedom. And instead of being inspired, some became resentful. Because now standing next to you, they can feel their own compromises. They can feel their own chains. And your freedom makes their bondage harder to justify. That is why they try to pull you back. That is why they try to make you feel guilty, detached, or selfish. They are not attacking you because you changed. They are attacking you because they didn't. Your new boundaries, your new mindset, your refusal to settle, it all shakes the foundation they built their comfort on. You're no longer participating in the games they depend on to feel in control. You are not a threat because you are dangerous. You are a threat because you are free. And free people are dangerous to systems that rely on conformity, silence, and spiritual sleep. You broke out of the mental matrix. You woke up to who you are. You reclaimed your power. And now, every room you walk into feels the tension between truth and denial. You did not offend them by doing wrong. You offended them by choosing to live right and by refusing to shrink back into the box they built to contain you. Number 14, you're the storm and the shelter, a paradox they can't understand. You confuse them because you refuse to choose, not because you're indecisive, but because you're complete. You're not one-dimensional. You carry fire and gentleness in the same breath. You can comfort someone with wisdom and, in the same moment, destroy a lie with ruthless truth. And that's not contradiction, that's divine balance. But to people who've been trained to believe that power must look one way, you look like a threat. They don't know what to do with someone who can be both storm and shelter. They want you to pick a side, either be soft and safe or bold and destructive. But you don't pick sides. You embody both. You can walk away from chaos without needing to explain, or you can confront injustice head-on with no apology. Your healing to the wounded and judgment to the wicked. Your peace to the sincere and a warning to the manipulative. And people don't like that kind of unpredictability because it exposes their need to control how power should behave. They mislabel you because they don't understand divine paradox. They call you too much, too intense, too emotional, or too distant, all depending on what version of you they were hoping to manipulate. What confuses them most is that none of those labels stick. You don't need their categories to exist. You are the embodiment of what they said couldn't be real, someone who is deeply spiritual and deeply grounded, fiercely loving and fiercely discerning, calm and commanding. They're used to people picking a lane, either be nurturing or be fierce. You're both. That's what makes you so powerful. You don't move in extremes, you move in wholeness. And wholeness terrifies those who benefit from fragmentation. They can't use you, they can't predict you, and they can't categorize you. What they fail to realize is that your complexity is your design. You weren't built to be simple. You were built to carry dimensions because your mission requires it. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to disrupt the illusion that true power must be one thing. You're not the storm or the shelter. You're the storm that ends false peace and the shelter that protects sacred truth. They don't know whether to fear you or follow you because you're not like anything they were warned about. You're the prophecy they never saw coming. You are not here by accident. You are a divine anomaly, a frequency that cannot be duplicated, a presence that doesn't conform to human expectations. You are the blueprint for what happens when spiritual evolution collides with unwavering courage. Every misunderstanding, every attack, every whisper behind your back only confirms the undeniable truth. They feel your power, even when you're silent. And it terrifies them, not because you've harmed them, but because your very being disrupts every lie they've built their identity around. They weren't prepared for someone who could hold such authority without needing a title, who could carry such clarity without needing applause. You're not what they expected, and that's the point. Your existence itself is divine rebellion against limitation. You embody what the world tried to erase. the fully awakened, untamable soul. But now, the time for dimming is over. You've spent long enough hiding your depth to make others feel comfortable in their shallowness. You've outgrown the disguise of being normal. Your essence was never meant to be digested easily. You're not palatable. You're potent. And the world doesn't need another version of what it already knows. It needs the full, unapologetic, raw frequency of you. So keep walking with that unshakable grace. Keep speaking what others are too afraid to even think. Keep radiating truth that rattles the bones of falsehood. And when they stare, whisper, or try to minimize you, let them. Because what you carry can't be explained to those still trying to earn approval from broken systems. You don't need validation when you already walk in revelation. You don't need permission when you're already chosen. And you definitely don't need to shrink, because your power isn't a threat to the world. It's a wake-up call. The storm and the shelter have arrived, and it looks like you. If this message resonated with your spirit, don't just sit with it, move with it. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now, because this is just the beginning of the truth your soul has been craving. Like the video to amplify the frequency, comment below and let the world know you're awake and unapologetic. And don't forget to share this with someone who needs a serious reminder of their divine power. Let's shake the algorithm with real light, real fire, and real chosen energy, because this isn't just content, this is a movement, and you are a part of it. God bless you.